my graduation party, they made me wait outside. My aunt told me it's only for close family. I looked around and saw everyone except me was inside. So I turned away with my cap and gown and said, then I'll celebrate on my own. My dad rushed after me stunned. You ever wonder what it feels like to be completely invisible on the one day you were supposed to shine brightest? To achieve a lifelong dream, only to have the very people who claim to be proud shut you out at the door? The air in the upscale Garland restaurant felt thick with the clinking of glasses and muffled laughter, even from outside. It was a perfect early summer evening, but for me, Alice Carter, standing there in my cap and gown, diploma clutched tight, it felt like the world was closing in. I just graduated medical school, a dream forged in fire and fueled by endless sacrifice, and this was supposed to be my celebration. But when my Aunt Eleanor greeted me with a thin, almost apologetic smile and said, I'm sorry, Alice, the party is just for close family right now, I knew, deep down, that something was terribly, fundamentally wrong. I could see them through the window, my cousins, distant relatives I barely knew, all inside, celebrating something. And I, the guest of honor, was left out in the cold. Growing up as Grace Carter's daughter meant understanding sacrifice before I even knew the word. My mom, she was my everything, my provider, my protector, my loudest cheerleader. After my dad left when I was 3, she juggled 3 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads, waitressing before dawn, administrative work during the day, and convenience store night shifts on weekends. Exhausted, yes, but she never, ever missed helping me with homework. Education is the one thing no one can ever take from you. Alice, she'd tell me at 11 p.m., her eyes heavy with sleep, but her smile unwavering. Your brain is your ticket to freedom. Our tiny 2-bedroom apartment in a less-than-ideal neighborhood became our fortress. While other kids showed off new clothes and the latest toys, I cherished trips to the public library. Mom made sure I never felt poor. When the electricity got cut, she'd turn it into a magical adventure with flashlights and shadow puppets. Extended family? That was a different story entirely. My mother's sister, Aunt Eleanor, married into serious money and never let us forget it. Their Christmas cards were always perfect, staged family portraits from exotic vacations. When they hosted gatherings at their sprawling suburban home, we were sometimes invited, but we always felt like outsiders. My cousins, Chloe, Noah, and Liam, had everything I didn't. Private schools, summer camps, parents who actually attended their events. Why doesn't an Eleanor like us? I asked Mom once, after a particularly awkward Thanksgiving where my aunt had openly critiqued my thrift store dress. Mom just squeezed my hand. Some people measure worth by what you have, not who you are. That's their loss, honey. Despite the constant family friction, I excelled in school. Education was my refuge, a place where effort undeniably led to results. By high school, I was taking all AP classes and working part-time at a local pharmacy. The pharmacist, Dr. Jim, became my first true mentor. You have a natural talent for remembering medication interactions, he told me, and more importantly, you care about the people behind the prescriptions. That's what makes a good doctor. The idea of becoming a physician felt impossible, financially, but Mom refused to acknowledge limitations. She helped me tirelessly research scholarships, attend college fairs, and perfect my essays. When acceptance letters arrived, including a partial scholarship to State University, we danced around our tiny kitchen, tears streaming down Mom's face. You're going to be Dr. Carter someday, she whispered. I always knew it. College was a brutal balancing act. Academics, work study, student loans. Ramen was a staple. Sleep was a luxury. But I thrived, making the dean's list every semester and securing research positions that bolstered my med school applications. Then, during my senior year, came the diagnosis that shattered everything. Mom's persistent cough and fatigue weren't just overwork. It was stage 4 lung cancer. Suddenly, I was splitting time between classes and the oncology ward, taking notes during chemotherapy sessions, just like Mom used to review my homework. Don't you dare pause your applications, she insisted from her hospital bed. My daughter will be a doctor. I got into medical school with a scholarship. But Mom's condition deteriorated so quickly. 6 months after her diagnosis, I held her hand as she took her final breath. The woman who had given everything to ensure my success wouldn't live to see it. Grief nearly broke me. I considered deferring, but her voice echoed in my head, unwavering. I channeled my pain, my raw, bleeding grief, into purpose. Medical school became an obsession. Her insurance covered the funeral and left just enough for a down payment on a studio apartment near campus. The next 4 years blurred into anatomy labs, clinical rotations, board exams, and a constant, barely suppressed ache of loss. My extended family vanished after Mom's funeral. Aunt Eleanor sent a generic sympathy card with a $50 check that, of course, bounced. My cousins would occasionally text on holidays, but any real connection had withered away. I found family in my program, especially my study partner, Sophia, who became the sister I never had. But mostly, I poured myself into becoming the doctor Mom had envisioned. In my final year, I was awarded a prestigious scholarship for physicians dedicated to underserved communities, covering my remaining tuition and a stipend. As graduation approached, I sent announcements, more out of obligation than expectation. To my shock, Aunt Eleanor actually called. "We're so proud of you, Alice," she gushed, her voice dripping with an enthusiasm I never heard directed at me. "The family wants to throw you a proper graduation party. You're the doctor in the family." I was suspicious, but hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, my achievement had finally earned their respect. "That sounds wonderful," I replied, cautious, but allowing myself a flicker of excitement. "Leave everything to me," she assured me. "Just focus on your ceremony. This will be a celebration worthy of Dr. Carter." For the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel genuinely excited about family. A turning point. A chance to heal old wounds. I even splurged on a new dress to wear under my gown. The ceremony itself was bittersweet. Sitting amongst my peers, I felt Mom's absence like a physical ache. When Alice Grace Carter was called, I walked across the stage, scanning the audience out of habit, even though I knew no family was there. Aunt Eleanor had said they'd meet me at the restaurant. I took selfies with friends, trying to capture the moment. "Your mom would be so proud," my advisor said, hugging me tight. "I know," I replied, believing it with all my heart. "She's the reason I'm here." Little did I know, the real test of my strength wasn't just getting through med school without her. It was facing my family's ongoing rejection on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. Graduation day dawned with glorious sunshine, streaming through my apartment windows. For years of grueling studies, sleepless nights, moments of crushing doubt, I had made it. Dr. Alice Carter. The thought still felt surreal. I spent extra time getting ready, knowing Mom would have loved this day. My new navy dress, a splurge I'd saved for weeks, felt professional and special. I carefully curled my hair, applied my makeup. "Mom would love this," I whispered to my reflection, touching the tiny pendant with her photo around my neck, my way of keeping her close. Throughout the ceremony, my mind kept drifting to the party. Aunt Eleanor had texted me details. Reservations at the Garland at 7 p.m. Private room in the back. Everyone's so excited to celebrate you. The Garland. One of the fanciest places in town, a place I could only dream of on a student budget. Her choice of venue seemed like a genuine effort. Despite our history, a glimmer of hope sparked in me. Maybe this achievement had finally bridged the gap. After the ceremony, congratulatory texts flooded in. "Can't wait to see you tonight," from Noah. "So proud of you." "See you at the Garland," from Chloe. "Doctor in the family." "Save me some cake," from Liam. Each message fueled my growing optimism. Maybe things were different now. I went home to freshen up, keeping my cap and gown. Relatives had asked for photos. The drive took 15 minutes, and I rehearsed gracious responses in my head. The restaurant was even more impressive than I'd imagined. A converted historic mansion, valet parking, elegant landscaping. I spotted family cars. My heart fluttered with excitement. As I approached the grand entrance, cap and gown on, diploma case under my arm, I could hear music and laughter from inside. The hostess smiled. "Welcome to the Garland." Do you have a reservation? I'm here for the Carter party, I said. I believe they have the private room. Her expression brightened. Oh yes. They're all set up in the back. Looks wonderful. Let me get someone to show you. Alice, there you are. I turned to see Aunt Eleanor sweeping toward me. Impeccably dressed, as always, her expensive silk pantsuit uncreased, her salon-perfect hair unmoving. Something about her expression made my stomach clench. I'll take it from here, she told the hostess, then turned to me, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. Alice, dear, you look nice. The slight hesitation before nice wasn't lost on me. I pushed aside the familiar sting of judgment. Thank you for organizing this, Aunt Eleanor. The restaurant is beautiful. She glanced around conspiratorially. About that, we're just getting everything situated inside. Would you mind waiting out here for a few minutes, just until we're ready? I blinked. Ready? But I thought, it's just for close family right now, she said, her voice firm, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from her sleeve. We have some things to discuss before the actual celebration. Close family, I repeated, the words making no sense. But I am family. And isn't this party supposed to be for me? Aunt Eleanor's expression tightened. Of course it is, Alice. Don't be dramatic. We just need a few minutes to finalize some things. You understand. As we stood there, I could see past her, through the partially open door into the private room. Tables were beautifully decorated with flowers and balloons. A banner read, "Congratulations, Dr. Carter." And the room was full. Not just immediate family, but distant relatives I barely recognized, family friends. Everyone was inside, except me. A couple entering behind me glanced curiously at my cap and gown. The woman smiled. Congratulations on your graduation. Thank you, I managed, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. Aunt Eleanor looked annoyed by the interruption. Just wait here. Someone will come get you when we're ready. She turned and walked back into the room without waiting for a response. Through the door, I caught a glimpse of Noah, Chloe, Liam, and Uncle David, plus at least 20 others, all chatting, champagne flutes in hand. No one was getting things ready. They were already celebrating. I stood frozen in the entryway, clutching my diploma case so tightly my knuckles turned white. The reality of it slowly, brutally sank in. This was my graduation party, yet I was the only one not allowed inside. The hostess gave me a sympathetic, uneasy look before busying herself. My chest tightened, embarrassment washing over me. Childhood memories flooded back, being seated at the kids' table long after my cousins had graduated to the adults, receiving obviously regifted presents at Christmas while they unwrapped the latest gaming systems, being introduced as Grace's daughter instead of by my name. I had truly believed that earning my medical degree would finally make me worthy in their eyes. But standing there, cap and gown on, diploma in hand, I realized nothing had changed. I was still the outsider. Still not quite good enough to be part of the close family. That familiar, haunting inadequacy crept up my spine. Was there something fundamentally unlovable about me? Something that made me less deserving than my cousins? Logically, I knew this was their issue, not mine. But logic does little to soothe the raw pain of rejection, especially from people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. I found myself backing toward the door, nearly bumping into another arriving guest. My hands trembled. My face burned with humiliation. Part of me wanted to storm in, confront Aunt Eleanor, demand the recognition I'd earned. But another part, the little girl who had learned early to expect disappointment from everyone except her mother, just wanted to disappear. Is everything okay, miss? The hostess asked, genuine concern in her voice. I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up, dangerously close to tears. The celebration sounds from the private room seemed to grow louder, mocking me. Someone laughed, a carefree sound that pierced me like a physical blow. For a moment, I hung suspended between fight and flight. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. How's the family party going? Sending you strength. Sophia, who had seen me through panic attacks before exams, who had held me when I cried on the anniversaries of Mom's death. Sophia, who was more family to me than anyone in that private room. That text was a lifeline. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and made a decision. I would not beg for a place at my own celebration. Another 20 minutes dragged by. I stood there awkwardly, a permanent fixture in the restaurant lobby. Curious glances from arriving diners, increasingly worried looks from the hostess who offered me water twice. I kept checking my phone, half hoping for a text inviting me in, half considering calling an Uber to escape the humiliation. "Are you waiting for your party, honey?" An elderly woman asked as she and her husband left. "Do you need help finding them?" I forced a smile. "No, thank you. They know I'm here." That was the worst part. They knew exactly where I was. Excluded. I texted Sophia, "You won't believe this." Standing outside my own party. Aunt Eleanor said, "It's just for close family right now." Her response was immediate. "WTF? That's your party. Want me to come down there?" "Not yet. Just needed to vent." I scrolled through old photos to distract myself. One picture stopped me, my 12th birthday. Mom had saved for months to throw me a small party at the local skating rink. She'd invited everyone. Only 2 classmates showed up. No family. We later learned Aunt Eleanor had hosted a pool party for Chloe that very day, despite Mom specifically mentioning my birthday. When confronted, Aunt Eleanor had simply said, "Well, Chloe's friends were already counting on that date." I'm sure Alice understands. I hadn't understood. Mom made it special anyway, skating with me and my 2 friends, a cheap ice cream cake, silly photo booth pictures I still treasure. But I remember crying that night, asking Mom what was so wrong with me that my own family didn't want to celebrate me. Another memory surfaced, my high school graduation. Mom was so proud, cheering loudly. We planned a small dinner afterward, invited Aunt Eleanor's family. Only Uncle David showed up, bringing a card signed by everyone else, citing last-minute conflicts. Later that week, social media revealed they'd all gone to a baseball game together instead. My thoughts were interrupted as the restaurant door opened. My cousin Noah stepped out, looking incredibly uncomfortable. "Hey," he mumbled, not quite meeting my eyes. "Sorry about the wait." I crossed my arms. "What's going on, Noah? Why am I standing out here while everyone else is inside?" He shifted his weight, looking exactly like he did as a kid when he was lying about who broke Grandma's face. "Aunt Eleanor is just organizing a surprise. You know how she is about everything being perfect. A surprise at my graduation party that I'm not allowed to attend?" Noah winked. "It's not like that. She just wants to make an announcement before you come in. Just a few more minutes." Through the door, I could see people eating appetizers and drinking champagne. Someone was taking group photos. This wasn't preparation for a surprise. This was a party in full swing. "Noah, be honest with me. What's really happening?" He finally looked at me, guilt etched on his face. "Look, I don't agree with it, okay? I told Mom this was messed up, but you know how she gets." "How she gets about what?" I pressed. He lowered his voice. "She's making this big speech about how proud the family is to have a doctor now, and how we've all supported you through medical school. Some people from Dad's firm are here, important clients. She's kind of making it seem like they paid for your education." The audacity. It was breathtaking. "They didn't give me a dime, Noah. Your mom sent me a sympathy card when my mother died with a check that bounced. None of you even came to my white coat ceremony." Noah had the decency to look ashamed. "I know. I should have been there. It's just, you know how it is." No, I didn't know how it was. I had always been the family obligation, not a true member. The poor relation they occasionally remembered out of duty, not love. "I'm sorry, Alice." "I really am proud of you," Noah said, sounding genuinely sincere for the first time. "I should get back inside before Mom notices I'm gone." As he retreated, the hurt transformed into something hotter, sharper. Anger. How dare they use my accomplishment as social currency while excluding me? How dare Aunt Eleanor pretend she had anything to do with my success? I thought about my mother, who had worked herself to exhaustion to give me opportunities, who had helped me study for the MCAT while undergoing chemotherapy, who had made me promise on her deathbed to finish what we started. "Don't let anything stop you," she had whispered, her hand frail in mine. "And don't let anyone make you feel small. You're meant for big things, Alice." Standing outside that restaurant, in my cap and gown, I felt her absence like a physical ache. Mom would have barged in there and demanded respect for her daughter. But Mom wasn't here. It was just me, and I had a choice to make. My phone buzzed again. A text from Sophia. What's the address? I'm coming. In that moment, a profound realization hit me. Family wasn't defined by blood. It was defined by who showed up for you, who celebrated your victories, who helped you through defeats. By that definition, Aunt Eleanor and most of the people in that room weren't my family at all. I looked through the glass door at the celebration happening without me. Aunt Eleanor was at the center of attention, gesturing dramatically to a group of well-dressed strangers. This wasn't about me. It had never been about me. It was about Aunt Eleanor's desire to associate herself with my achievement, without acknowledging her complete failure to support me when it actually mattered. It was about appearance, not reality. The story she wanted to tell, not the truth. The realization didn't lessen the hurt, not entirely. But it brought a searing clarity. I was done waiting for approval from people who had no intention of ever truly giving it. I was done making myself small to fit into spaces where I wasn't genuinely wanted. I was my mother's daughter, and it was time I stood up for myself the way she always had for me. After nearly 40 minutes, I had become part of the restaurant's decor. The hostess had stopped asking if I needed anything. New arrivals barely glanced my way. I was just the woman in graduation regalia, perpetually waiting. Through the partially open door, the celebration continued. A waiter passed, carrying a tray of elegant desserts, little chocolate things topped with edible gold. Mom would have found that ridiculous, I thought. Food you wear, not eat. I shifted to get a better view and then froze. Aunt Eleanor was standing at the head of the main table, champagne glass raised. The room quieted. Her voice carried clearly. As I was saying, she proclaimed, "Our family has always valued education above all else. When my dear sister Grace passed, David and I promised we would ensure Alice completed her journey to becoming a doctor. It wasn't easy, but family takes care of family." The blatant lie knocked the air from my lungs. Not only had they provided no support, Aunt Eleanor had actively discouraged me from wasting money on more school after Mom died, suggesting I get a real job. And now, she continued, we're so proud to celebrate Dr. Alice Carter, the physician in our family. Though she's running fashionably late today, light laughter rippled through the room. We couldn't be prouder of her accomplishment and our part in it. I must have made a sound because the hostess glanced over. Inside, I saw a large portrait of me in my white coat on an easel, my official medical school photo. Next to it, a smaller framed photo of my mother, the one I kept on my nightstand. The sight of Mom's image, being used in this charade, was the final, devastating straw. As I watched, a waiter approached Aunt Eleanor, whispered something. Her eyes darted towards the door, towards me. Her expression tightened. She nodded and continued her speech as if nothing had happened. Moments later, the waiter slipped out. "Excuse me, Miss Carter? I believe you're the guest of honor." I nodded, beyond words. "Your aunt asked me to check if you were still waiting." He looked uncomfortable. "She said to tell you they're almost ready for you." Almost ready. After 45 minutes at my own party. "How many people are in there?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He glanced back. "About 50, I think." It's quite a turnout. 50 people. Celebrating an achievement they had nothing to do with, while the actual graduate stood outside like an unwanted delivery. I thought about my options. I could keep waiting, eventually be allowed in, and pretend none of this had happened. I could make a scene, barge in, and call out Aunt Eleanor's lies. Or I could leave quietly, letting them continue their farce without me. What would serve my dignity best? What would honor my mother's memory and the values she had instilled in me? Mom always emphasized taking the high road. But she had also taught me that self-respect was non-negotiable. Never beg for a seat at a table where you're not valued. She had told me once, build your own table instead. As I stood there, I saw through the door. A waiter brought out a large cake, decorated with "Congratulations, Dr. Carter." Aunt Eleanor was positioning herself next to it, clearly for photos. My cousin Chloe adjusted the banner. They were constructing a narrative that erased my struggle, my mother's sacrifice, their own glaring absence. They were rewriting history to cast themselves as the supportive, generous family they had never been. The realization hit me with stunning clarity. Nothing I could say or do would change who they fundamentally were. No achievement of mine would ever be enough to make them truly accept me. I could become Surgeon General, and Aunt Eleanor would still find a way to make me wait outside my own celebration while she took credit. I looked down at my graduation gown, the academic regalia I had worked so hard to earn the right to wear. The blue and gold of my university, the honor cords. This was mine, my accomplishment, my moment. And I refused to let it be hijacked by people who didn't deserve to share in it. With a sudden, fierce resolve, I began unfastening the gown. I slipped it off, then the cap, folding them carefully over my arm with my diploma case. The hostess watched wide-eyed. I squared my shoulders, took a deep breath, and walked to the private room door. I pushed it open just enough to catch Aunt Eleanor's eye. Conversation near the door faltered as people noticed me. My aunt's smile flickered, then she recovered. "There she is," she exclaimed, not quite loud enough for the back of the room. "We're almost ready for your grand entrance, dear." I met her gaze steady. "No need, Aunt Eleanor. I can see you're all having a wonderful time celebrating something. But since this is clearly not actually about me, I'll leave you to it." Her smile hardened. "Don't be ridiculous, Alice. Of course, this is about you. We're all here to celebrate you." "Really? Because I've been standing outside for nearly an hour while you told everyone how you supported me through medical school, which is interesting, since I haven't seen you since Mom's funeral 4 years ago." A few nearby conversations died. Aunt Eleanor's eyes darted around nervously. "This isn't the time or place for dramatics," she hissed. "We can discuss any misunderstandings later." I shook my head. "There's no misunderstanding. You wanted the social capital of having a doctor in the family without having to actually support me becoming one. You wanted the party without the person. Message received loud and clear." I held up my folded gown and cap. "I'll take these and my actual achievements elsewhere. I'll celebrate with people who were actually there for me during the journey." The shocked silence that followed was deeply, profoundly satisfying. For once, Aunt Eleanor was at a loss for words. My cousin Noah half rose from the seat, looking conflicted, while Chloe and Liam stared open-mouthed. "Alice, wait," Uncle David began, but I was already turning away. As I walked out of the restaurant, I felt a curious mix of emotions. Hurt and anger, yes, but also a surprising lightness. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to the family dynamics that had made me feel inadequate for as long as I could remember. I had refused to accept scraps of attention when I deserved a full place at the table. Outside, in the warm evening air, I took a deep breath and texted Sophia, "I'm leaving. Can I come over?" Her response was immediate, already setting up. "Bring ice." I smiled through the tears that finally escaped. My chosen family might be smaller, but it was real, and that was worth celebrating. I made it exactly 3 blocks from the Garland before pulling into a gas station parking lot, unable to see through my tears. The full weight of what had just happened crashed over me like a wave. I sat behind the wheel, clutching my carefully folded graduation gown, and sobbed. Deep, body-shaking sobs that came from a place of accumulated grief. I cried for my mother, who should have been there. For the family support I had never received. For the little girl inside me who still craved validation from people who would never give it. When the initial storm passed, I called Sophia, my voice still thick with emotion. "They're throwing a party for me that I'm not allowed to attend," I choked out. "Aunt Eleanor is literally taking credit for putting me through medical school. Those absolute trash humans." Sophia fumed. "I knew your aunt was bad, but this is another level." I wiped my eyes, smudging my carefully applied makeup. "I don't know why I'm even surprised. This is just more of the same, isn't it? Which is why you're better off without them. Come over now. I've already texted the group." "What group?" "The Real Celebration Committee," she said, determination in her voice. "Just get your butt over here with some ice." By the time I arrived at Sophia's apartment 20 minutes later, my phone was buzzing. Multiple texts from Noah. That was messed up. "I'm sorry. Mom is trying to spin it like you had a meltdown. Are you okay? Where are you? And Surprisingly, one from Uncle David. Your mother would be ashamed of how you were treated today. I should have spoken up sooner. This isn't right. I silenced my phone and climbed the stairs to Sophia's third-floor apartment, ice bag in one hand, graduation regalia and diploma in the other. When she opened the door, I was greeted by celebratory music and hastily hung decorations. A handwritten "Congrats, Dr. Alice." Banners stretched across her living room, blue and gold balloons taped to the walls. But more surprising were the people gathered there. Dr. Chen from the pharmacy, my study group from medical school, two of my favorite professors, friends from clinical rotations. At least 15 people, all smiling and cheering as I entered. "Surprise," Sophia said, hugging me tightly. "The real celebration, with people who actually give a damn about you." I stood frozen in the doorway, overwhelmed by this spontaneous outpouring of support. "How did you?" Group text, Sophia shrugged. Everyone dropped what they were doing. That's what real family does. Dr. Chen approached, his hair grayer than I remembered, but his kind eyes unchanged. I wouldn't have missed celebrating this milestone with you, Alice. I still remember the teenager who asked me 1,000 questions about drug interactions. I knew then you'd make an exceptional doctor. My anatomy professor, Dr. Kim, raised a glass. To Dr. Carter, one of the most dedicated students I've had the pleasure of teaching. Your mother would be bursting with pride. The genuine warmth in that room was like stepping into sunshine after years in shadow. These people had actually been part of my journey, witnessed my struggles and successes, offered help when I needed it, celebrated my incremental victories. As we crowded into Sophia's small apartment, sharing impromptu toasts and stories, my phone kept buzzing. I finally checked it and found social media notifications. My cousins and other family members had started posting publicly. So proud of my brilliant cousin Dr. Alice Carter from Chloe, who'd barely spoken 10 words to me in 4 years. Major respect for my cousin completing medical school despite incredible challenges. Inspiration from Liam, who never once checked on me after mom died. The duplicity was staggering. They were crafting a public narrative of family support while the reality couldn't have been more different. I showed Sophia, who rolled her eyes dramatically. Classic. They're damage controlling. Bet and Eleanor is making them post that stuff. Before I could respond, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost declined it, but something made me answer. "Is this Alice Carter?" A woman's voice. "Yes, this is she. This is Brenda, the events manager at the Garland. I wanted to personally apologize for what happened this evening. Your situation was brought to my attention by several of our staff who were very concerned." I stepped into Sophia's bedroom for privacy. "Oh, thank you." But it wasn't the restaurant's fault. Nevertheless, what happened was unacceptable. I've worked here for 15 years, and I've never seen anything quite like it. She paused. "I should tell you that shortly after you left, quite a scene developed. Several people walked out, including an older gentleman I believe was your uncle." My heart skipped. "Uncle David left?" "Yes, and he was quite vocal about his disapproval. 2 younger men followed him. They appeared to be around your age, Noah and Liam. That was unexpected. The party broke up rather quickly after that," Brenda continued. "Your aunt tried to continue as if nothing had happened, but it was awkward, to say the least. A small, petty part of me was gratified to hear my departure had disrupted their carefully orchestrated event. But mostly, I was shocked that Uncle David and my cousins had actually taken a stand. "I appreciate you letting me know," I told her. "There's one more thing," she added. "The gentleman, your uncle, settled the bill in full, but left instructions that the cake was to be delivered to you. He left your address with us. Would tomorrow morning be acceptable?" I gave her Sophia's address instead, thanked her, and returned to the celebration in the living room with a strange feeling of vindication. At least some of my family had recognized the injustice. As the evening progressed, I received 3 more calls from Uncle David, which I let go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to talk, but I listened to his messages. "Alice, it's Uncle David. What happened tonight was inexcusable. Eleanor had no right to treat you that way, especially not on your graduation day. I should have put a stop to it immediately. Please call me back when you can. It's me again." I've left the party. So have Noah and Liam. We're at the diner on Main if you want to join us. No pressure, but the door is open. Just checking if you're okay. I understand if you don't want to talk right now. Just know that I'm truly sorry, and I'd like to make it right if you'll give me the chance. I showed the messages to Sophia, my rock through every medical school crisis. What do you think? I asked her. Should I call him back? She considered it seriously. He's making an effort. That's more than can be said for the rest of them. Maybe hear him out, but set boundaries. You don't owe anyone automatic forgiveness. I nodded, feeling a new sense of empowerment. For too long, I had accepted whatever scraps of family connection were thrown my way. Standing up for myself at the restaurant had shifted something fundamental. I deserved better. And for the first time, I truly believed it. My phone chimed with a text from Noah. I messed up big time. Should have stood up for you right away. Left with Dad and Liam. Can we talk tomorrow? The genuine, warm, supportive celebration around me continued. These people had shown up for me when it counted. They were celebrating my achievement, not using it for their own social clout. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Dr. Chin raised his glass again. I propose another toast, not just to Alice's achievement, but to her character. Grace raised a daughter with integrity, persistence, and compassion. Those qualities will make you an exceptional physician. As everyone clinked glasses, my anatomy lab partner, Daniel, called out, speech from the doctor. Surrounded by people who actually cared, I found my voice. I couldn't have done this without all of you. Medical school is impossible to get through alone. And each of you helped me in ways you might not even realize. My voice caught. My mom used to say that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up. All of you showed up, not just today, but throughout this journey. I raised my glass, feeling a bittersweet mixture of grief and gratitude. To my mom, who started me on this path. And to all of you, my chosen family, who helped me finish it. As tears erupted, my phone buzzed again with another text. This one from Aunt Eleanor. Your behavior tonight was embarrassing and childish. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us. You've always had a flair for drama, just like your mother. I showed it to Sophia, who gasped in outrage. But instead of the hurt I might have felt before, I found myself laughing. The message was so transparently manipulative, so clearly designed to make me question my own reality, that it had lost all its power. What are you going to do? Sophia asked. I deleted the message without responding and put my phone away. I'm going to celebrate becoming a doctor with people who are actually happy for me. The rest can wait until tomorrow. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Not free of grief for my mother, that would always be a part of me, but free of the desperate need for approval from people who would never freely give it. I had built my own table, just as Mom had advised, and it was filled with people who genuinely cared. That night, surrounded by genuine support and celebration, I finally understood that I hadn't lost family when my mother died. I had simply needed to recognize the family I already had. The morning after graduation dawned bright and clear, both outside and within me. I woke on Sophia's couch to the smell of coffee and the gentle clatter of breakfast preparation. My head ached slightly from the champagne we consumed during our impromptu celebration, but the emotional hangover I'd expected was surprisingly absent. In its place was a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in years. Morning, doctor, Sophia said, handing me a steaming mug. How's it feel to be both a doctor and an official family rebel? I laughed, sitting up and gratefully accepting the coffee. Surprisingly good, though I have about 20 missed calls to deal with. My phone had indeed been lighting up since dawn. Messages from Uncle David, Noah, Liam, and even Chloe. Conspicuously absent was any communication from Aunt Eleanor beyond her passive-aggressive text. I scrolled through them, sipping my coffee, trying to decide my next move. The cake's being delivered at 10, I reminded Sophia. Yes, stolen graduation cake for breakfast. I'm here for this level of petty, she grinned. Around 9:30, while we were still in pajamas, discussing whether to respond to any of the messages, an unexpected knock came at the door. Sophia peeked through the peephole and turned to me wide-eyed. It's your Aunt Eleanor, she whispered. And she does not look happy. My stomach dropped. I hadn't given the garland Sophia's address. Only Uncle David had that. He must have told his wife. You don't have to see her, Sophia said firmly. I can tell her to leave. I considered this for a moment. Running away or hiding would only reinforce the dynamic that had existed all my life. Aunt Eleanor as the authority, me as the chasing child. It was time to change that pattern. No, I'll talk to her, I decided, standing up. But here, on my terms. I quickly ran a brush through my hair and straightened my wrinkled clothes from the day before. Not ideal, but this wasn't about appearances anymore. When I opened the door, Aunt Eleanor stood there in another impeccable outfit. Her handbag clutched tightly against her body like armor. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, her entire posture radiating disapproval. May I come in? She asked stiffly. You can say whatever you came to say from there, I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Her eyes narrowed at this defiance. This isn't a conversation for hallways, Alex. I raised you better than that. Actually, I said, a tremor in my voice I quickly suppressed. You didn't raise me at all. My mother did, and she taught me that respect is earned, not automatically granted based on family title. Aunt Eleanor flinched, almost imperceptibly. For a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Not anger, but something more complex. Fine, she said after a pause. I came to tell you that your behavior yesterday was unacceptable. Do you have any idea how much that party cost? How many important connections were there specifically to meet you? You embarrassed the entire family. I leaned against the door frame, considering her words. That's interesting, because from where I was standing, outside my own party, it seemed like the event was more about you than me. You were taking credit for supporting me through medical school when we both know that's not true. We are family, she insisted. Your accomplishments reflect on all of us. Family, I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. Where was this family when Mom was dying? Where was this family when I was working 3 jobs to make rent during my first year of medical school? Where were you, Aunt Eleanor, when I needed actual support, not a performative party after I'd already succeeded? She adjusted her handbag, clearly uncomfortable. Your mother chose her path. She always had to do everything her own way, even when we offered help. This blatant revision of history ignited something in me. What help? When Mom worked herself to exhaustion, providing for me because her family, your family, decided she wasn't worth supporting when she became a single mother. You all judged her, excluded her, made her feel less than. And then you did the same to me. That's not true, she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. It is true. And you know what's sad? I spent years thinking if I just achieved enough, if I just became successful enough, you would finally accept me. But standing outside that restaurant yesterday, I realized it would never be enough. The problem was never me. It was you. Aunt Eleanor's carefully maintained facade cracked slightly. You don't understand. Things were complicated with your mother and me. Then help me understand, I challenged. Because from my perspective, you've treated me like an unwanted obligation my entire life. She was silent for a long moment, staring past me into the apartment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter. Your mother was always the smart one, the pretty one, the one everyone adored. I was the practical one, the responsible one. I did everything right, married well, maintained the family connections, upheld our social standing. Grace threw it all away for your father, who everyone knew was unreliable. I stared at her, realization dawning. You were jealous of her. I was concerned, she corrected quickly, but we both heard the lie. When he left and she struggled, I thought she would finally admit she had made a mistake, that she needed our help, my help. But she never did. She was too proud. She was too hurt, I countered, by her family's judgment, by their conditional love. Aunt Eleanor looked away. When she got sick, I didn't know how bad it was. She didn't tell me until it was advanced. By then, it was too late to reconcile, I finished for her. And after she died, instead of making amends by supporting her daughter, you just continued the same pattern. Something that might have been shame crossed her face. I didn't know how to bridge that gap. And then you were achieving everything on your own, just like she would have done. Sophia appeared at my shoulder, a silent show of support. Aunt Eleanor glanced between us, seeming to register for the first time that I wasn't alone or defenseless. The party was supposed to be a gesture, she said finally. A recognition. It was a performance, I corrected gently. For your friends and connections, not for me. If you had wanted to genuinely celebrate me, you wouldn't have made me wait outside like an unwelcome guest. Before she could respond, the elevator dinged, and a delivery person appeared with an enormous cake box. Delivery for Dr. Carter. The timing was almost comical. Aunt Eleanor stared at the cake, then back at me. David arranged for this? I nodded. He, Noah, and Liam left the party after I did. They seem to understand what you still don't. That family means showing up when it matters, not just when it's convenient or socially advantageous. She absorbed this information with visible discomfort. For perhaps the first time in our relationship, I saw Aunt Eleanor at a loss for words. The carefully constructed narrative she had built of the generous aunt supporting her less fortunate niece was crumbling before her eyes. After the delivery person handed off the cake to Sophia, an awkward silence fell between us. I waited, no longer feeling the need to fill the space or make things easier for her. I should go, she finally said. Clearly, this isn't the right time. When would be the right time, Aunt Eleanor? After years of exclusion and judgment, when exactly would be the appropriate moment to address him? She had no answer. As she turned to leave, I felt not the satisfaction I might have expected, but a strange kind of pity. My aunt had spent so many years maintaining appearances and hierarchies that she had missed the true meaning of family. The unconditional support and celebration of each other's joys that my mother had embodied. For what it's worth, I called after her, I would have welcomed a genuine relationship with you and the family. Not because of what you could give me materially, but because you were my mother's sister. That meant something to me. She paused, but didn't turn around. After a moment, she continued toward the elevator, her shoulders rigid with pride or regret. Perhaps both. Later that day, I finally returned Uncle David's calls. Our conversation was tentative at first, years of distance, creating an awkwardness neither of us quite knew how to navigate. I failed you and your mother, he said bluntly after preliminary pleasantries. I let Eleanor dictate our family relationships because it was easier than standing up to her. Yesterday, watching you stand alone outside your own celebration, it was like seeing your mother all over again. I couldn't be complicit anymore. What happened after I left? I asked. He chuckled, without humor. I told Eleanor she had gone too far. Noah and Liam agreed. We walked out, and about half the guests followed, including most of the actual family members. The business associates she was so eager to impress were left rather confused. This revelation genuinely surprised me. Half the guests left? Chloe stayed, he added, but she texted me later saying she regretted not leaving too. Eleanor has a strong influence over her. We talked for nearly an hour. Uncle David filled in gaps in my understanding of the family dynamics that had shaped my childhood. My mother's decision to marry against family wishes, the subsequent ostracism when the marriage failed. The complicated relationship between the sisters that had begun in childhood and poisoned everything that came after. None of this excuses how you were treated, he emphasized. But I want you to know it was never about you, Alice. It was old wounds and jealousies that existed long before you were born. That doesn't make it hurt any less, I said honestly. No, I suppose it doesn't. He paused. Noah and Liam would like to see you if you're willing. They're genuinely sorry. They've always looked up to you, you know, your determination, your independence. Qualities their mother didn't necessarily encourage in them. I promised to think about it, not ready to commit to more family interactions just yet. When we ended the call, I felt a strange mixture of closure and new beginning. The conversation hadn't erased the hurt of years of exclusion, but it had provided context I had never had before. Over the next few weeks, as I prepared for residency, I received tentative outreach from various family members. Noah invited me to coffee, where he awkwardly but sincerely apologized for years of going along with his mother's treatment of me. Chloe sent a handwritten card, congratulating me and expressing regret for her role in the party debacle. Even Liam, the cousin I'd had the least connection with, texted asking if we could reconnect. Aunt Eleanor remained conspicuously silent, but Uncle David reported that my confrontation had shaken her more than she would admit. "She's not good at acknowledging when she's wrong," he explained. "Never has been, but she knows she crossed a line this time." I decided to accept these tentative olive branches from my cousins, while maintaining healthy boundaries. We weren't going to become an instantly close-knit family after years of distance. But perhaps we could build something new, a relationship based on who we were as adults, rather than the dynamics established in childhood. More surprisingly, I found myself considering family therapy with those willing to participate. Not to excuse the past, but to understand it better and create healthier patterns moving forward. My medical training had taught me that sometimes the most painful wounds needed to be reopened and cleaned before they could properly heal. As I packed for my move to Boston, where I would begin my residency, I placed my mother's photo carefully between layers of clothing. "I did it, Mom," I whispered. "Not just becoming a doctor, but standing up for myself the way you always wanted me to." I didn't need a fancy party or family validation to know she would have been proud. 1 year after the graduation party incident, I stood in the small but cheerful backyard of my new apartment in Boston, surrounded by a mixture of old and new friends, colleagues from my residency program, and, most surprisingly, a small contingent of family members. Uncle David manned the grill with unnecessary seriousness. Noah was deep in conversation with Sophia about a patient case I'd consulted them both on. Chloe was helping arrange a table of potluck dishes. First-year residency survivor celebration. Read a handmade banner hanging between 2 trees, Sophia's handiwork, complete with anatomically correct heart drawings that made some of the non-medical guests slightly uncomfortable. I surveyed the scene with a quiet sense of satisfaction. This gathering was everything last year's party wasn't. Genuine, relaxed, centered around actual relationships, not appearances. No one was performing for social media or business connections. No one was taking credit for my accomplishments. It was simply people who cared about each other enjoying a beautiful summer day. The path to this moment had been neither straight nor easy. The months following my confrontation with Aunt Eleanor had been filled with awkward family dynamics, tentative reconciliations, and occasional backsliding into old patterns. We had started family therapy, myself, Uncle David, Noah, and eventually Chloe, meeting monthly with a skilled therapist specializing in family systems. Our sessions had been almost comically tense, none of us quite knowing how to bridge years of distance and hurt. But slowly, session by session, we began to unpack the complex history that had shaped our relationships. Uncle David spoke candidly about his regret at not standing up to his wife sooner. Noah and Chloe shared their own experiences growing up under Aunt Eleanor's exacting standards and conditional approval. Different from my exclusion, but damaging in its own way. "I always thought you had it better because you had freedom," Chloe admitted during one session. "Mom was so controlling of every aspect of my life, my appearance, my friends, my activities. Everything was about maintaining the right image. And I thought you had it better because you had security and belonging," I countered. I would have traded some freedom for knowing I had family support. These realizations helped us develop empathy for each other's experiences. We weren't comparing trauma or competing for who had it worse. We were finally seeing each other clearly, perhaps for the first time. Aunt Eleanor refused to participate in therapy, maintaining that the whole exercise was unnecessary drama. Her absence was felt, but in some ways, it allowed the rest of us to speak more freely. Uncle David had begun standing up to her more consistently, refusing to enable behaviors that damaged family relationships. It had created tension in their marriage, but he seemed more at peace with himself. "Your mother would be proud of you," he told me one day after a particularly productive therapy session. Not just for becoming a doctor, but for forcing us all to face some hard truths. Professionally, my year of residency had been the expected whirlwind of exhaustion, intense learning, and occasional triumphs. The internal medicine program at Boston General was renowned for its rigorous standards, and there were days when I questioned whether I had the stamina to continue. But the resilience I had developed throughout my life served me well in the hospital's challenging environment. What surprised me most was how my personal experience with family dysfunction had unexpectedly become an asset in my medical practice. I found I had a particular sensitivity to patients whose illnesses were complicated by family dynamics. The elderly man whose children couldn't agree on his care plan. The teenager with mysterious symptoms exacerbated by parental conflict. The young mother trying to navigate treatment decisions without family support. "You have a gift for this," my attending physician commented after watching me mediate a difficult family meeting. "Most residents your level would have gotten frustrated and walked out." "I've had some practice," I replied simply. As the backyard celebration continued, I found myself drawn to the small memorial table I had set up in a quiet corner. My mother's photograph stood, surrounded by a few meaningful items. Her favorite book, the stethoscope she had given me when I was accepted to medical school, and a small jar containing sand from the beach where we had scattered her ashes. "Having a moment?" Sophia asked, appearing at my side with 2 glasses of lemonade. I smiled, accepting the drink, just thinking about how much has changed in a year. From standing outside your own party to hosting one. That's what I call character development, she quipped. We clinked glasses, watching as the gathering revolved around us. New connections were forming. My residency mentor deep in conversation with Dr. Chin, who had driven up from my hometown for the weekend. Noah showing my colleague Isabella pictures of his new puppy. Uncle David earnestly discussing grilling techniques with my landlord. "You've built something good here," Sophia observed. "Your own kind of family." The term, chosen family, had always felt somewhat cliché to me, but looking around, I couldn't deny its accuracy. These were the people who showed up not because of obligation or social expectation, but because of genuine care and connection. Some were related by blood, others by shared experience, but all had earned their place in my life through consistent presence and support. Aunt Eleanor's absence was noticeable, but not painful. After months of minimal contact, she had sent a brief note acknowledging that perhaps she had misjudged some situations, as close to an apology as she was likely to offer. I had responded with equal brevity, leaving the door open for future reconciliation without expecting it. Our relationship remained tentative and distant, but the toxic power she had once held over me was gone. Dr. Carter called one of my interns, waving me over to settle a good-natured debate about a recent medical journal article. As I joined the group, I caught Uncle David watching me with an expression that reminded me powerfully of my mother, a mixture of pride and wistfulness that made my heart contract. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Uncle David helped me carry dishes into the kitchen. "Your mother loved gatherings like this," he said unexpectedly. "Nothing fancy, just good people enjoying each other's company." Eleanor always thought Grace's parties were too casual, not impressive enough. But they were always the ones people actually enjoyed. I paused, hands deep in soapy water. I didn't know that about her. There's a lot you might not know. She was a remarkable woman, your mother. Stubborn as hell, of course, a family trait you've clearly inherited. He smiled wryly. "She would be so proud of the life you're building, Alice. Not just the doctor part, though. That too. But the way you've learned to stand up for yourself while still keeping your heart open. That's no small thing." As the last guests departed and quiet settled over the apartment, I sat alone on my small balcony, watching the city lights against the darkening sky. The journey from that humiliating moment outside the Garland to this peaceful evening had taught me lessons no medical textbook could contain. I had learned that family was defined not by DNA, but by consistent presence and genuine support. That standing up for yourself wasn't selfish, but necessary for authenticity. That healing often required confronting painful truths rather than maintaining comfortable illusions. And perhaps most importantly, that belonging was not something to be earned through achievement or pleasing others, but something to be built through mutual respect and care. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Best party ever. Your mom would have loved it." I smiled, feeling my mother's presence not as an absence, but as a foundation, the strong base upon which I had built everything that followed. Her love had been unconditional in a family where love typically came with strings attached. That gift had ultimately allowed me to recognize when relationships were healthy and when they were not, to set boundaries where needed, and to build connections based on genuine care rather than obligation. The hard-won wisdom of the past year settled around me like a comfortable blanket. I had learned that walking away from toxic dynamics wasn't giving up. It was the step toward creating something better. That confronting painful patterns wasn't causing trouble. It was creating possibility for healing. That standing alone was sometimes necessary before you could truly stand together. As I prepared for bed that night, I paused before my mother's photograph on my nightstand. "I think I finally understand what you were trying to teach me all along," I whispered. "That family isn't about who you're born to. It's about who you choose to become, and who chooses to stand beside you through that journey." The road ahead would still have its complications. Family dynamics established over generations don't transform overnight, and residency would continue to test my limits professionally. But I face these challenges now from a place of hard-won strength and clarity. I had stopped waiting for a seat at a table where I wasn't valued. Instead, I had built my own table, one large enough for all who wished to connect authentically, with no one left standing outside. What about you? Have you ever had to walk away from something familiar to find something better, or had to redefine family on your own terms? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and growth, and share this with someone who might need to be reminded that they deserve to be celebrated exactly as they are. Thank you for being part of my chosen family today.